Hello, everyone, and welcome to the library. And the library is officially open, which means it's time to either read
or be read.
Thanks for joining us. I am your host, Phillip.
And I'm your co-host, Meredith Towson.
Today we have a lot to cover, including, of course, what everyone in our community seems to be talking about, which is RuPaul and transmisogyny. And we're also going to educate you a little bit about Sylvia Rivera and our Themstory.
First, we have our wonderful guest. The first one is Carmen Carrera. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
She is, of course, an amazing model and actress and a former RuPaul Drag Race contestant.
The J-Lo of Drag Race, if you will.
Yes.
J-Lo may have had the naked dress, but you just had the naked.
Just the naked body.
A naked show. You were just naked the whole,
naked.
every challenge. And we
Work
also
your strength. Work your strength.
And we also have the lovely Phillip Henry, who, if you haven't guessed by now, is a comedian and also an author, and is probably the author of our most controversial Them column called Dear White Gay Men.
Listen, I like to stir the pot. It's fine.
Yeah, and stir the pot, you do.
Controversial
It's a well-seasoned pot, okay?
Controversial and most read in many senses of the word.
Most read it.
Read in every way.
Well, so before we dive in, and speaking of controversial things on them.us, we're launching with reader receipts, which is when we hear your feedback and then we talk back to you. And we have something that we would like to discuss about a headline we recently published.
Yes, we published a piece this week by our editor-at-large, Michael Cuby, about drag queens' reactions to RuPaul. And the headline was, "These trans and female drag queens have some words for RuPaul." And we got a number of reader comments, which were completely justified, saying that this article implied that trans women are not female because it says trans and female. And the original intention of the article was that there was one of the drag queens was a non-binary drag queen, and we didn't want to lump them with the term women. But as a result, we unintentionally also implied that trans women are not female, and so we corrected the headline.
Right. Language is obviously so important, but then when you talk about the LGBTQ community at large, and I see it, when you guys are talking in Slack about, like, before we publish something,
right.
There's so much back and forth about, like, should we say this, or can we say this, or can we not say this? So obviously there was, a lot of conversation. It just ended up not being the best execution in the end.
Yeah.
That's okay. That happens. I think that happens regardless of intention. Like, it's fine.
It's a learning process, I feel like. Like, we're all, at this point, we're all kind of connected via social media, so we're learning these things and people are more vocal about it so that we can sort of correct it, I guess. Because even within the community, it's like you sort of get comfortable, right? In, like, what you know and your circles, and then you just, that comfortability makes you have strong beliefs.
Totally.
So that's where I feel like the conflict comes in. It's like everyone wants to be right and be heard, but it's like the fighting and stuff like that's never a good thing, because then we can never really learn.
What I love about what you just said is basically that you can always count on our community to kind of, like, always interrogate each other and always hold each other accountable.
Right.
Absolutely. And it's something that you shouldn't, you don't want to stifle that either. It's really good to, by design, we have so much diversity in our community, and sometimes people get either overlooked or you don't really understand how you might be offending someone. And I think it's, important to just, take that and listen.
And isn't that a lesson that RuPaul could learn from above and behind all else, which literally just brings us to the big story. As everyone kind of knows now, the Drag Race host said, "Drag loses its sense of danger and its sense of irony once it's not men doing it." And actually, in his interview that he gave, he implied that trans drag queens who have undergone hormone therapy or had surgery are kind of less qualified to be drag queens.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna
BYE.
Okay, I'm just gonna read RuPaul's tweet. "You can take performance-enhancing drugs and still be an athlete, just not in the Olympics."
Excuse me? Excuse me, because Drag Race is the Olympics.
Well, but also, as one of the queens in our piece pointed out, there are a lot of contestants in RuPaul Drag Race that have fillers or that
Detox?
Detox, Chad, Trinity, Taylor, they're 80% man-made. And that's fine. It's absolutely okay. The funniest part about that tweet to me is the idea that like all trans women are leading lives to just like compete in RuPaul's Drag Race as if like that's their goal. And I'm like, no, not everybody wants to be here.
Right.
There are plenty of huge drag queens who refuse to do the show.
Right.
So it's just laughable, the idea that like trans women are getting up and like taking testosterone and putting their patches on just so that they could like get a leg up on gay men.
I think you mean estrogen.
And this, sorry, oh my god.
An alternative drag queen.
Yeah, this is a very different drag queen.
I'm open to that.
Yeah, listen, everyone should be able to be on Drag Race. Testosterone queens too.
Carmen, you were literally on the show. You were on season 3. You made it all the way to the finals. And you just kind of threw shade when you said Drag Race is the Olympics. But I was under the impression this is like an excruciating and really intense competition.
It's not. You have to understand. Your transition is something that's so personal and so private. It's like you can still be a drag queen and transition, like you can still be a gay man and live your private life and have your, relationships or your ups and downs or whatever. And aside from that, when you go on stage, it's like you're shedding all of that. It's a powerful moment. It's the opportunity to convey a feeling or an emotion or your art, which is something that we need sometimes. So I feel like, are people losing, like, what do people think drag is? Like, what is it, just to look like a woman? I'm trying to put my finger on it to be able to address it, and I don't get it. Like what do people think drag is for trans women or for people in general, other than an expression of art?
Right.
And why are you telling us no just based on who we are?
You're policing art.
You're robbing us. Yeah, and to police trans bodies, it's like, let us just be, like, let us just
Did
function.
your relationship with Ru change after you openly identified as trans?
I never had a relationship with RuPaul. I tried my best. I'm a very bubbly person. I wanted to be like his friend, but I realized we're in a competition, so I was like, all right, let me, And then when we did Drag U, where we're shooting together and we're talent now at this point, we're all on the same call sheet. It's not like, contestants and God, like it's how it feels on Drag Race, you know what I mean? It's like, but it's, I thought, cool, like now we're working, like now we can be friends, like now, wow, this is RuPaul, like she's like so major to me. And it wasn't like that. Ru doesn't really want to be personal even after the competition. It's like, which is cool too, which I can respect, but at the same time, at least be kind.
When we were talking about like what drag is this idea that Ru's like, it's an FU to like male-dominated culture, and then I'm like, but you as a man are then dominating and putting rules on the women that are involved in this culture that have been so like culturally relevant to this culture. Like,
right.
Trans women have been like an integral part of the drag community
right.
from the beginning.
Yeah.
So to now, and I think it's the fame thing. It's that like to mainstream culture, to people who don't really know drag,
right.
They see RuPaul as drag. And so that fame and that power has kind of put Ru in the position where she thinks she can just be the gatekeeper and decide how it works for everyone and what the rules are. And I'm like, that's not really how it goes.
As we addressed on the site, and Phillip, as you addressed in your column, misogyny exists and is very prevalent in the gay community.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether gay men like to acknowledge it or not. And then that is only magnified when it becomes transmisogyny.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's kind of what you were going into when you were looking at comments on social.
Well, I think like it's called the gay rights movement and not the LGBTQ rights movement for a reason. It's that like gay men have really like hijacked that movement. But the thing is that they weren't making change for the whole community. It was more of a fight for privilege than it was for equality for everyone. And that's what happens is that you take a safe space like drag, which is something like everyone in our community should have access to and be able to enjoy, and then you've weaponized it by trying to exclude people who've been a part of it the whole time, who've been a part of it before you were a part of it.
Right.
And that is a problem.
You were talking about the gay rights movement. The gay rights movement has always been an LGBTQ rights movement. We just haven't called it that,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And trans women have always been pushed to the margins, which is exactly why Meredith wanted to talk about Sylvia Rivera today for Themstory.
Yeah. I mean, I think because it's Women's History Month, this month we decided that we wanted to honor the amazing Sylvia Rivera. And also, part of the reason for that is we published a piece over the weekend that talked about the history of relationships between trans women and drag queens, and Sylvia Rivera is an important figure. She embraced both terms as a drag queen, and she actually said she's not completely comfortable with transgender, but she aligned herself with the transgender community. For her, she and Marsha P. Johnson founded Street Transvestite Action Revolutionary, STAR. And for them, it was an organization that benefited homeless youth who are gay, gender nonconforming, trans, however you identify, as long as you're part of the LGBTQ plus community. And that was a really important part of her message, that actually what is really important is to benefit those and to advocate for those who are marginalized. And one of the things that Sam Rydell in this piece points out is that she believes that part of what's driving RuPaul is this idea that, that now drag queens are respectable in a way that they weren't. Back when drag queens were not respectable and were aligned with trans people, they were considered allies against respectable, quote-unquote, gay men. Whereas now that drag has achieved this mainstream respectability, there's this way in which RuPaul is sort of is disavowing that. And I think it's really important when we think about the legacy of Sylvia Rivera, that she was always really rooting for the people who are most marginalized, regardless of who they are.
Right.
And also, by the way, she was born on July 2, so we're both Cancers.
Oh, a Cancer.
I'm a Cancer as well.
Love a sensitive star
Listen,
sign.
I love to cry.
Before we go, we have to do our segment, and it's called The Go Off. And it's an opportunity for one of our staff members to just say how they feel about a particular issue in 1 minute or less. And this time, our wonderful go-offer, Phillip Picardi.
Okay, I'm a little nervous. It's like a 60-second rant, so bear with me.
Yeah.
But we're going to start the clock.
So we're going to set the clock. Ready, set, go.
Okay, recently, Carrera from Queer Eye gave an interview to the Gay Times, where he said that dating apps are, quote, unhealthy and over-sexualize the queer community. He also said that he doesn't feel comfortable bringing his 17-year-old and 21-year-old children to pride parades because there are go-go boys dancing on floats. Carrera's comments are very typical of an old-school generation of gay men who think that assimilation is our key to making progress in our community. And I say that now is not the time for assimilation. If we are going to be marginalized, penalized, and killed for our sexuality, we should take extreme and immense pride in who we are, who we sleep with, and who we love. Now is not the time to bend to what straight people want us to be or want us to look like. Now is the time for us to take actual pride in ourselves, be more inclusive than ever, and stop rolling back our community by applying to cis heteronormative standards of what love looks like. So Karamo, you're lucky I'm running out of time, boo. Call me.
Cool.
Amazing.
So wait, I have a question. Is this wrong? Maybe I don't know if this is wrong, but is it wrong to want to have a gay pride where you can bring children? Because I feel like there's so many children that are inspired by Drag Race and inspired by how visible some of us are. How can we include more youth into pride? And how, because when the pride that I'm used to going to in New York is not very kid-friendly whatsoever. I've lived this experience. Like, people forget. Like, people think that that I was just like some kid on Drag Race and that's it. Like, no, before Drag Race, I was established in the city. I would run part of the East Coast. Like, that was my community. Those are my people. You know what I'm saying? So how do I do
I think
both?
I think both things are true, right? I think that pride parades should continue to have elements of embracing our sexual community and not stifling ourselves to cater to a majority cis heterosexual straight audience. Yeah. And I also think that we need to make more room to be more inclusive of trans women and celebrating trans femininity, and also, for that matter, butch people and everyone else who's on the spectrum, right?
Absolutely.
With the pinkwashing of pride, what actually probably will happen is that only the palatable people will march and be at the front of that parade. So none of us want that. But I think we can find a way to agree in the middle. And with that unexpected sideshow by Carmen Carrera, we are at the end of our show. So please tell us what you think on social media. Like us on @them on Instagram and on Facebook. And please don't forget to comment below so that maybe you can appear in the next segment of Reader Receipts. Thank you guys for joining us. The library is now closed. Bye.
Phil, show off your tattoo. Yeah, Phil has a new tattoo.
I did. I got a diamond because my boyfriend still hasn't proposed, so I got my own diamond.
And you know that April birthstone is diamond.
Oh,
so don't accept anything else but your birthstone. Always.
Yes.
Like
wise words from Carmen Carrera.
Diamonds only.
diamonds only, baby.
Have a good week, everyone.